Hiya. Happy Sunday. Thanks for joining us. Apologies if you're watching this late and it's caught you out. It was quite late us organising exactly when we were going to do it this week. But welcome to this week's recording of On the Ball, which is on a Sunday evening. And it's absolutely not going to become a regular thing, but we are doing it this time today. Long story short, though, it'll get mentioned during the podcast. I'm away all week. So I'm missing the next two games, but we're going to get this podcast bang out there for you. And we'll then be back again on Monday to review the action that I would have caught up on by then. So as exciting, the headwear is here to represent the fact I am going away and I'm probably fairly demop happy. You want to know who's on tonight? Have a look. Look at that. We've got Steve Sanders, we've got Ryan Livermore and Ben Mouncer on a video, which is thoroughly exciting. So that's all those guys. I'm just going to share this on the old Facebook. And then once we've done that, oh, my hat, doesn't my cap look amazing? Please share with me your dubious choices of headwear, that you've maybe worn to a football match. I wonder what the strangest thing someone has worn on their head at a football match, or maybe a Norwich match. Let's narrow it down a little bit. Please let us know in the comments, which we will be reading throughout the podcast record, which will absolutely finish at 10 to 9. That's the aim. Steve will be keeping an eye on those as well, as will I. But don't be offended if we don't include it this week, because we're not going over time. I've got to be honest with you. So that's all grand. Last couple. But yeah, ask us any questions you wish. If there's anything you want us to bring up and talk about, then go on, because, there's quite a bit to talk about around the old Norwich City world. What a great week it's been, after all. So, can't be short of things to talk about, as if we've ever been short of things to talk about. They are all shared. That is that. I reckon we crack on. Get in touch with us with your comments and questions. We'll keep an eye on them throughout. Hope you're having a great Sunday and you have a brilliant week. And I'll see you on the other side. Enjoy the podcast. Let's have some introductory music, shall we? It's always a good place to start. Fine evening, Sunday evening, in fact, which is a little bit weird for us. We have Norwich numberwang chief at NCFC Numbers, also known as our very own Steve Sanders.
Hi, Michael. Evening, everyone.
We have On the Ball's official random quizmaster generator, which probably underplays the work he puts into it, Ryan Livermore.
Evening, everyone.
And making his On the Ball video debut, I think, but a true pod original. It's former Norwich Marshaller of the Press, Ben Mouncer.
Good evening, Michael.
Oh, it's lovely to have you chuckle. Lovely to have you chuckle on the pod, Ben. Thanks for joining us, guys. Thanks for everyone out there. Happy Sundays. But of course, you could be listening to this at any point in the coming week or so, in which point, I hope you're having a spiffing day. Steve, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, it's still the weekend, which feels weird. But yes, I am. I'm full of beans, and I know my beans, as indeed we all do. So yes, looking forward to getting started.
Well, it's gone straight for the beans puns. How strange. Ryan, how are you?
Oh,
are you okay?
Brilliant. I'm brilliant. I'm fine. I've not been with it for 3 days, so I'm just running off fumes. Who knows what's going to happen tonight, guys? But I'm here, so that's all that matters, right?
Yeah, it's been hot, and Ryan's been working very hard, which does, outdoors in the burning heat make things difficult. But it's great to have you here, Ryan. And hopefully you see out the pod. Let's hope so. Ben, welcome to you. Thanks for joining us on video. This is lovely. How are you?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. This is the first I've done of these in a while. The first podcast I've done in a while, actually. Oof. So forgive me if I'm a bit slow on the uptake, but it's great to be back. As one of the founding fathers of this fine enterprise. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Thanks for calling it an enterprise. All right, it's okay. We'll treat you as if it's Sam Byram against Bournemouth on Tuesday night. That's what we'll do. We'll see how we get on. Cracking. If anyone watching is wondering why I'm wearing a hat and why this podcast might hopefully finally be under an hour, it's because I'm going on holiday in the early hours, and I've got to get this podcast out, and we can't overrun. And I'm wearing a lovely cap, a classic Team Lotus cap, by the way, on the side of my head to get through this. If you're listening to this, I'm sure it will be available to watch post event on a social media platform if you've got nothing better to do. In the meantime, I reckon we get straight in with it, obviously, with this week's headline act. Well, absolutely no doubt that we all saw this coming. This is exactly what we thought over the opening weeks of the season. 2 wins, 4 goals, 6 points. And this is why we all like the Championship, right? Norwich are now sitting... Oh, I forgot to check. Where are Norwich now sitting in the table? Can anyone have a quick... I didn't
Just outside the playoffs.
6?
Outside the playoffs?
I think
were
it's 8th at the moment.
6th. We've got 6th. We've got an 8th. I know they were 7th, I think, after the games. But I've been a bit... They are 8th. Well done. They are 8th. On 7 points from 5 games. Perfect, seamless.
This is what happens when we go a day early. No one has a clue where the hell we are.
No, exactly. But there has been more than 10% of the season gone already. There you go. What I'm curious, I mean, obviously two cracking games that we'll get stuck into. But I'd like to know the biggest positive we've seen since we were last on, but 7 days ago. The biggest positive, the biggest change, the biggest thing. Steve, would you like to go first?
Yeah, okay. I mean, I think my positive, and I'm sure we'll get on to talking about individuals. I'm sure Ryan's got about 20 minutes that he wants to do on Daniel Sinani, and there's plenty of others who have caught the eye. Personally, for me, I think it was nice to get that feel-good factor back at Carrow Road. It feels like ages since, we've really had that kind of confidence. I think having a load of new players has helped. Some of whom, we've signed, some of whom have come in through the youth system, and just there felt like there was a real freshness on Friday night about the team, the way we played. I was looking into it, and so 3 years ago, we beat Newcastle around this time, just over 3 years ago. So since then, we've had 10 wins at home in front of a proper crowd at Carrow Road, and 3 of them have been in the last 12 days. So I think that gives you some idea of how starved our fans have been at home at least, but really, home and away, of any sort of entertainment. So I think, to me, that was the main positive. But obviously, in the wider context of the season, it feels like A, we're back in the race, and B, we've got a system, and we've discovered something that works, and we look like a team that feasibly could be in the mix at the end of the season, which I think before 7 days ago, we hadn't had that evidence yet.
Ben, I love it when you're stroking your beard. It means you're concocting some great thought.
I'm actually trying to think of something else, because that's exactly what I was going to say.
In fairness, though, it was remarkable, the freshness and almost the lifting of the atmosphere. That was like a tangible, almost like the ground. I mean, you ask Dean Smith and the players, and they're always like, "No, we've not really had a hangover," because that's just what they say. But in terms of the atmosphere around the ground, it was like a exhale.
Yeah, I mean, my main the main sort of source of enjoyment for me on Friday was just how fun it felt to be back at Carrow Road, and I think Steve highlighted it there with examples of how few sort of home matches we've won over the last few years, and where crowds have been present. And I think for me, it's just that feeling of enjoying the game. I wasn't actually at the Huddersfield game, but that certainly didn't feel like a game where that was enjoyable in the second half, when things got a bit tense. But the Millwall game on Friday was something that I think, I don't know, it just felt like a really, and there was a bit of edge to the atmosphere as well, for reasons which we probably won't go into. The away fans certainly played their part.
Indeed. I was going to say, we've Carl Thompson says, "Great week, shame about the Millwall fans. First time in 40 years I've been hit by missiles in the family."
Yeah, I mean, when I say there was an edge, I obviously am not endorsing missiles being thrown at all. But I don't know. Maybe the factor of it being a Friday night as well played into it. The fact that we'd got that win on Tuesday, so it was a little less pressure on the team and the crowd were slightly more relaxed going into that match. I don't know, it just felt a really enjoyable occasion. And actually what the two wins have done is put to bed some of the kind of early season nonsense that was flying around on social media around a lot of the club's direction and the managerial staff and the squad and everything. I think people just panic very quickly when at the beginning of a championship season, as we've proven in our last couple of championship seasons. You don't need to start very quickly to be very, very successful. So I think it feels like our season has now started officially, and we can, as Steve said, begin to imagine what the team is going to look like and begin to feel optimistic about what might happen.
Ben, can I have your choice cut of nonsense that you heard? Just one.
Yeah. No, not really, because it's just you know what it's like with it's social media. Like you just get, it kind of flows over you, doesn't it? This general feeling, and I guess extreme views are put in front of you more so than they would be in a normal conversation. But yeah, I don't want to pick out any one person or any particular example. But I think it's it just feels like the season's now settling down, and we can begin to, as I said, enjoy it and have proper debates about things. And yeah,
I love that. Too well said. And yes, what I would say is the atmosphere was fantastic from the moment the teams came out on Friday. And then don't throw stuff and get in fights would be my only advice from that point onwards, really. Ryan, go on. Biggest positive, biggest thing.
I think the manner of the win on Friday for me, because we had a few, sketchy performances at the start of the season, but Friday, for me at least, felt like a team who is capable of competing at the top of this league in terms of grinding one out against a difficult team. And albeit we had the lion's share of the territory in possession in the first half, there wasn't that cutting edge that we perhaps would have wanted so early, like there was against Huddersfield. However, it would have been so easy for this team a few months ago to have persevered in that way and got deflated, but they kept plugging away. And then some of the one-touch movement in the final third in that second half in particular was excellent. And it didn't feel like a team who hadn't won in that manner for such a long time. And then you have like players like Sonani and Sargent who have really come to the fore the last 2 weeks. And it just feels like the guys said that there's a positive atmosphere around the place again after that. And you just hope it's enough to carry on into the next few weeks at the very least. But we'll just have to take it as it comes, as the cliche goes. But I think the manner of the win against such a stubborn team on Friday is my highlight for sure.
See, that's a really interesting point, because I can't remember everything I've said over the start of the season. Like, I try and be consistent. I can't exactly recall what I've said, but for me, Millwall probably felt like the best team Norwich have played so far. I don't envisage Millwall being a top 3 team this season. I think they will certainly be probably top 10. That's where it probably pitched at. I am expecting Norwich to come up with probably against bigger and tougher teams to take on. But the thing for me is that every moment you've sort of doubted what Norwich are doing or whichever, I felt has come after a position where they should have been probably 2 or 3-0 up anyway if they were playing properly and taking their chances. So the fact that they've looked, I know it sounds stupid to say it, but like a cut above most teams they've come up against. I don't really feel and haven't really felt that there's been much issue with them being in the top half as long as they play to their potential. If they obviously just unraveled and didn't take their chances and they couldn't score despite how dominating they were, then it'd be more of an issue. But so and even the Huddersfield wobble, it was kind of inexplicable, really, coming against 10 men at home when they were already 2-0 up. So the fact, in a way, that they coped with the game being pretty even against Millwall for the first 20 minutes. And then I've seen, obviously, what a lot of people said about the first half and it being quite stodgy. I thought it was a pretty good platform to then build on in the second half. And they did. From the moment the second half, it wasn't like that second half came out of nowhere. They just, built on the performance. So in that instance, I thought it was a cracking performance. And obviously, they've got to win away from home. I think I did just see, Gary Field popped in. That's the home form sorted now for the away form, 0 points from 6 so far. Yeah, he's right, but I maintain, Gary, everyone, there is no way Norwich should have lost to Cardiff. They were rubbish. and I don't believe that it was a pass by Romain Sawyers. I did think it was a shot on goal, but I think you play that game probably 9 times, say 10 times. I think Norwich probably win it 8, especially if they're in the rhythm of a season. Hull probably should have been 3-0 down after 20 minutes as well. So
I think that Cardiff performance was the only one that we could really say was a bad performance this season. I don't think, although Cardiff weren't good either, I don't think we really deserved to get that much out of that game, really, just by the way we performed. Everything since then, has been, we've either played well or been and won or been slightly unlucky. I was looking at this week, and okay, this might be slightly overboard, but there were some slight parallels to the situation in 2018-19 at the start of that season, when we picked up one win. I think Farke's job was looking a little bit precarious. We were playing okay, but not winning games. And then Jordan Rose got injured, and suddenly you've got to adjust unexpectedly the team in a way that you wouldn't necessarily have done. And suddenly Pukki plays up front, and by kind of more luck than judgment, really, you stumbled across a system that just suited us for the rest of the season. And I don't know what the guys think, whether that's something that we've stumbled across here, or whether I'm getting ahead of myself and we will go back to Timu, next Saturday.
Don't know if this is the post-Pukki era yet, Steve, but I think...
I'm not with
No, nor am I. I completely get what you're saying, and that almost happened as well in that mini revival that we had in the Premier League. Well, I say mini revival, that decent spell with the 2 up front under Dean Smith in the Premier League last year. That happened almost by accident
2
as
games.
well. 2 games, but in the Premier League for Norwich, that's a good run.
Too true.
So yeah, often I think you do fall upon these solutions by accident. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Steve. But what it does show is that we do have that squad depth, which we've spoken a lot about this season. But we have seen, the system. We do have a system now that we feel like we can trust, and we have players in that system. But we also have so many options. Certainly, if you look at Adam Eder potentially coming back and how he fits into it, Rashica, I'm not entirely sure what the future holds for him right now, because he's clearly just fell down the pecking order a bit. But different ways of different players to fit into the system, and I think that bodes well for how we move forward.
Just while we're on depth, our bench on Friday was Angus Gunn, Ben Gibson, Gabriel Sara, Aaron Ramsey, Todd Cantwell, Milot Rashica, Timu Pukki. That is not bad at championship level.
I'd say they would probably start in 18 to 20 of the 24 other teams, probably.
I would say so.
And that's without Isaac Hayden obviously being back in the team.
And Eder.
And I suppose that midfield mix is really interesting. I do think there's a lovely dynamic, and you can see them enjoying playing with each other together. And the point that I was going to make. I am going to make it now, because I think, I thought Kieran Dowell played well. I know some people were sort of questioning that maybe in the first half, but I thought he played well and had an impact in both goals, helped make them happen. And then El Sanani is an interesting one, because I think we've spoken about him linking well with Max Aarons, and looked like he's linked well with Kieran Dowell and Josh Sargent as well on Friday. Dan El Sanani, Ryan, is linking with everyone well.
Of course he is. What I like most about him coming off the right is I think he gives a little bit, from what I've seen anyway, I don't know how you guys feel, he gives a bit more variety to Max Aarons' game, because I always felt under Daniel Farke you kind of had this idea of Emi Buendia on the right would come in field and Max Aarons would always overlap. Sometimes with Daniel, he can hug the touchline a bit before he comes in, and that allows a bit of an underlap as well, and Max Aarons to penetrate those half spaces. And Max is one of those fullbacks who can affect so much going forward. Man, I think I genuinely worry now before the end of the window that we will lose him, because for the money you're going to get for Max Aarons, you can't possibly find a replacement as good as him at what he does. He's so good at carrying the ball, and he can genuinely take on 2 or 3 players and get past them before getting a ball in. And And to allow him that space to work in is something which I think Daniel's done in such a way that you can keep people guessing on that flank. And also as well, we saw the way he linked up with Josh Sargent in both games with the ball through for Tom Lees' red card against Huddersfield and the short intricate movement on Friday as well. I think he's got a bit of everything, and I do think he's the creative link that we've been missing for a long while, certainly since Emmy's gone, that's for sure.
I think on Max as well, there's more emphasis on him, given we've got Kenny McLean playing at left back, so that balance of the team. I do think with the 4-3-3, there's a little less emphasis on Max being a kind of marauding fullback than there is in the 4-2-3-1, because I think the two attacking central midfielders were kind of relying on that. It's almost a front five Smith wants, with the two wide men, the striker, and then those two central midfielders pushing up high up the pitch and with the instruction to be very creative. So I think it's interesting. How Max's role is maybe slightly tweaked, but I completely agree. And he's developing I feel like into a leader now in this team as well, which he should be. He's played a lot of games for us now, and he's got some great experience in this division in the Premier League. So I love him. I'm still not completely sold on Sinani. I think you can't argue with his numbers so far this season, obviously. And as we know, Michael Dean Smith has some sort of system where if you don't get a goal or an assist, you're going to be dropped. That's right, isn't it?
Well, I liked hearing that. Yeah, that's what Josh Sargent said. We've got lots of goal creators, assists or scorers. So if you don't do that, you're not playing. That's what he said.
Is that why Todd was left out then?
Well, I think that was more of he was the one they opted to rest. So, but that could be the diplomatic answer. But I have to say, I was thinking about that in the first half against Millwall and thinking, because people were sort of saying, get Todd on, get Kieran off. And I was looking at it and thinking, no, because the ground and the way Kieran was linking, I was liking what he was doing. He was sort of felt like he was, enabling the pass before the assist, which is obviously a lovely term.
The thing with Dowell is he's never going to be a Todd Cantwell or an Emi Buendia who will, dictate the game and have the most touches on the pitch. That's just not the kind of number 10, if we're going to use numbers, that he is. But what he can do is affect games in moments, as he did on Tuesday. Should have got an assist really for the second goal, which Sargent kind of fluffed. And on Friday night, when he, watching that back, his through ball, obviously that goal really was mostly about Josh Sargent, but his pass through was fantastic. I mean, I don't really know what more you want from your number 10 than to have an impact on games in that way, especially someone like Dowell, who does tend to drift in and out of games. We know that about him, but when he's on his game, and if you give him the space to do things like that, which, by the way, it wasn't just those two moments. I think he nearly created a few more things. I think he's had a pretty encouraging start to the season, to be honest. So I don't really get that criticism.
He is.
I think he's one of those players who can. No, sorry, Mike. I was just going to say, I think he's one of those players who can become really impactful when games open up and kind of in second halves of games. I think what happened in the first half was maybe Millwall's press in the central areas was quite good. So I think we weren't able to move the ball as quickly as we'd have liked through there. But I think as the game wore on, we were able to get Dowell and Nunez further forward, and resulted in kind of Dowell impacting the game as he did early in the second half. But yeah, I agree. I think he's an interesting one, isn't he? Because he can play in that sort of free 8 role, but also as a 10 and off the flank as well. And I don't think any of us would be able to say sort of with confidence what his best position is really. But he's certainly going to be a useful player to have as an option this season for Norwich for sure.
Definitely. A few things. I think Dean Smith described at one point that Kieran Dowell sprinted, and he then made the point that Kieran Dowell would like the fact that he used the word sprint. So that makes me think that they've spoken a bit about the pace at which Kieran covers the pitch, because he's not really a sprinter, but he does cover the ground a lot, but he just sort of does it at the same pace. I think he's quite efficient, but it just doesn't ever look like he's going to bust.
And I think that's maybe why fans maybe kind of get more annoyed with him than they maybe do with others, because he's playing at what they probably interpret as a leisurely pace.
Yeah, but it's his one pace. And what I would say, he's the sort of player when you watch the game second time around, which I guess not many people do, but I do. You watch it and you're like, what, he's had a really good game there, because you see more of what he's doing, because you pay more attention to something second time.
Works smart, not hard, right?
Well, I think that's what he would say, definitely. But then it sounds like the manager has also said, can you work a bit harder too? But there we go. And I mean, I think Daniel Sinani is another player who is going to drift in and out of games. I think we've seen that too. And, there'll be periods where it doesn't happen for him and then periods where it does, which I think is why at Huddersfield, it was kind of a mixed reaction to him from what I could tell all year. A lot of the fans liked him, but some were a bit like, So, I think let's see how everything develops. But clearly, he is probably playing with better players, I would like to think, this year. Or this season. Obviously, Paul Frake has come in with his biggest positive, Josh Sargent. Now, I mean, I said at the start, we may owe him an apology. I don't know if we do owe Josh an apology because, in the context of everything from last season, I don't think we were harsh or unfair. I think it was what it was. We're obviously operating and do. And obviously, if you guys all disagree with that, then shout and then we'll apologize. But what it is brilliant to say, having spent 12 months going, he wasn't ready yet. He clearly looks ready for the championship now, Steve, because I thought those two finishes were fantastic. They're just brilliant to see. And then you factor in the running, how much he ran, how powerful he was, how his hold-up play is generally absolutely fine at this level. And he seems to have the better of defenders when he's on it. It's exciting, isn't it? It's good.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe we do owe him a little bit of an apology because I think he was the brunt of quite a lot of our jokes. I don't know, were they jokes? Well, I don't know, snidey comments maybe last season. When we signed him, I thought it sounds like we've signed. I probably said this on the pod before. It sounds like we've signed the American Cameron Jerome here. And that to me is proving like it might be fairly accurate because I think he had a sort of Jerome type season last year, albeit from a wide role really. And that's maybe the key here is that we hadn't perhaps seen him in his best position that often. And he could be really lethal in the championship. And I think he's joint top scorer at the moment. So it's not a bad start. I think the main positive for me on Friday with Sargent's performance is the second goal could not have been scored by Teemu Pukki. I feel like I'm very anti-Teemu tonight. Obviously, really not meaning to be. But I think that was the key takeaway for me is that, the strength that he showed, it wasn't a foul. I've watched it back a few times. I can't see a foul in there. It's not so, the first goal was the kind of give and go that Teemu is superb at. But the second one was the strength, and it was a different goal to the kind that we would score under Daniel Farke. And the other thing with Sargent that I tend to forget is he's only 22. I keep forgetting how young he's younger than Max Aarons. He's 2 years younger than Todd Cantwell. So there's still a lot of potential there. And it's kind of exciting that, it's going to be exciting to see that this season. I really hope what we've seen over the last few days continues.
That's a really good point.
He's 10 years younger than you and I, Steve, which is horrifying. But,
all right.
I definitely owe an apology.
20, so you can all shut up. I think it's really that was the point for me that I know, that I kept mentioning was that whatever he wasn't that yet. And you kind of knew from how young he was that at least there would be the time for him to prove it either way. I remember someone.
Sorry, Mike. I was just going to on that point. I just want to say, I think physically he looks bigger this season. Like he's definitely kind of bulked out and done some conditioning work in the off season. I think that's helped him certainly in his performance on Friday.
I mean, I agree. I didn't think it was a foul, but also I've seen Grant Hanley fall over a lot and get fouls, which aren't generally fouls. So
they weren't clever enough then in that case. Hanley flop is a skill in my book. That's
maybe the key is to do it 1-on-1 rather than do it when you've got another defender near you because you're never going to get a decision when there's 2v1. Maybe that's the key. But I mean, Teemu Pukki would have made the finish, I suppose. It's just he never would have made. You almost would have had needed two players if Teemu had been on the pitch. Teemu would have finished it, and someone would have done the hard work beforehand, whereas Josh Sargent can do it all. But it's interesting because someone had mentioned to me a week before, I don't know, maybe it was in the group, I can't remember now, how Josh Sargent reminded them of Grant Holt, and I was kind of like, but then you kind of thought of some of that performance against Millwall, some of it, and we're talking about very fleeting, and we're not going to get carried away. But there were elements there where he's like, well, yeah, Grant Holt would have done that. So that's good. And I thought you made a great point there, Steve, that ultimately Norwich played Millwall twice 2 years ago, and they had 2 goalless draws, essentially because they couldn't work out a way to get around Millwall's kind of man-for-man system across the pitch and the power that they were showing. They looked really comfortable, and actually they kind of looked similarly comfortable in the first half at Carrow Road, I thought, on Friday. The difference was Norwich found a way to have the power to beat Millwall. That's only one team, but maybe they're not.
Sargent was absolutely critical in that. Obviously, his finishes were fantastic. Lots of things said about them, but you mentioned it when you start talking about him, Michael. But the ground he covered, and the speed at which he covered it, and the aggression he showed on and off the ball. When you go to a park and you see like a dog walker and they have one of those devices which sort of throws a ball and the dog goes like hurtling after it and like bundles over and like gets the ball. That's kind of what Josh Sargent was like, and I mean that in the most complimentary way possible.
Do we owe him another apology now?
He was that enthusiastic hound that was just running into every corner and coming out with the ball. And that the second goal was a perfect example of that. But I think it was so critical in moving us up the pitch. I said earlier about how Dowell and Nunez found themselves higher up in the pitch in the second half. I think Sargent had an absolutely critical role to play in that because he was working those Millwall defenders, in such a consistent and aggressive way.
He ain't nothing but a hound dog.
Is that tennis ball throwing drill what Kieran Dowell's not been impressing in, do you think? He's not been sprinting, he just ambles up to the ball and he's just like, no, you're not doing this right. Watch Josh do this. Less
poodle, more Rottweiler, Kieran, come on.
Well, Teemu Pukki is definitely more like feline. He sort of skulks on the shoulders of defenders, doesn't he? So we've got a canine feline sort of options up front, which is
which as a cat and dog, maybe they'd work as a pairing then, but we'll save that debate for another day.
Because they don't get on cats and dogs, Michael. They don't
centre back. It's a centre back line as well, though. There's Michael Cox did the piece on The Athletic. Go read it, everyone. Okay, that's grand. We'll wrap that up, and I reckon we move on to things we are not going to talk about. So we'll crack on with our list of things we're not going to talk about. You touched on one I wanted to bring up first of all, Ryan, while you guys will think of other ones. Max Aarons leaving. I mean, I just don't see it. I know that people have started talking about it now, but that would have had to have happened at the start of the window, essentially. And even if Sam Byram is fit now, all of a sudden, there's no way Max should be leaving now if they with the squad they've got, because they won't have enough fullbacks. So unless they've got someone lined up, they know they can get at the flick of a switch properly. I might be wrong, but I would be amazed and disappointed if Max went now. That's something that should have already happened in my head. But we had a bit of Tim Krul speculation, did we? Linking him with Manchester United. I saw that pop up, which I know in fairness, I've known he's been on Manchester United's sort of long watch list for about 18 months.
So isn't everyone on Manchester United's long watch list?
Well, maybe. or not, including some of the players they end up signing. So that doesn't surprise me. It surprised me that it's maybe come out now. That seems quite interesting timing. And obviously you think about Erik ten Hag literally being Dutch and you're like, oh, right, he's Dutch. So that's a link.
I mean, is that all it is though? Because supposedly, the reason that they don't want De Gea is because he's not good with his feet. And I know Tim Krul's much better than he used to be, but I wouldn't say that's a massive forte of his.
Hang on, are we talking about Tim Krul replacing De Gea here? Hang on.
Well, back up.
Oh, right, okay.
Put him under pressure. Yeah. But I mean, also, I think Tim Krul gets a bit hard done by in terms of
I'm not.
I think it's pretty.
I'm not
good.
saying he's bad, but I'm also not saying that he's a champion. Yeah. If you imagine I'd want to be a Champions League team with like an Edison or an Allison, distribution, he's not anywhere near that level. He's not one of the best two goalkeepers in the world, is what I'm saying.
At distribution, fair enough.
He was noticeably slow at distributing the ball on Friday night as well. I thought, and I think he got
considered
for it.
He did, yeah.
Considered.
He's going to get a lot of yellow cards, I think, this season for being slow on goal kicks.
But on the transfer window, obviously, we'll see about left backs. They might be able to ride it out now. And Kenny McLean playing as the inverted left back that basically plays as a central midfielder. No. Next week. But this is specifically things we're not going to talk about. And then Jordan Hugill. I don't know. But I mean, if Adam Ida's back, what does Jordan do? Because he's not really getting a look in now. Anything you guys don't want to talk about? Go on.
Well, I had Kenny, but we're really not going to talk about that.
Well, how do you not want to talk about Kenny, Steve?
Well, I sort of think that Dean Smith deserves a bit of credit here, because I listened to last week's pod this weekend, so after the two games, at which you were kind of saying, "Oh, what's going to happen with?"
With hindsight,
with the benefit of hindsight, your suggestion of Ben Gibson seemed hilarious. However, it was a viable option.
Who has
and
actually played at left back? Hang on.
Yeah. Hey, I'm not having a go. I'm just saying that with hindsight, but it was a viable option, and Smith could have easily done that because it would have meant he wouldn't have had to break his midfielder, but he did, and he put Kenny there, and he put Liam Gibbs in centre midfield, and I think it's fair to say that by taking that risk, which is not really the easy option, it has really come up trumps, and Gibbs has thrived there in the last 2 games. So I think Smith deserves some credit for that.
Good shout. I just love him playing just so centrally and just sort of going, leave that bit. That's all right. No one behind me, it'll be fine. Which is grand. Anyone else? Don't want to talk about
Floodlights.
No. Well, why don't you want to talk about them, Ben?
No, it was my first experience of them on Friday night, the new ones, and I don't know. I don't know if it's because where I'm sitting, but they're going to take some getting used to. That's all I'll say.
They are burning everyone's retinas. I'm pretty sure. But, it's a bit like when they probably first installed PA systems 50 years ago and they were at, like 7,000 decibels and everyone was like, it was a bit loud there, wasn't it? And then someone go, what? I can't hear you. And everyone had deafness from 20.
Yeah, I'm aware I sound very, very Norfolk, like complaining about them because every other stadium has this quality of floodlight. But
you say that. I go around to other stadiums and it was generally, I came back for the first game, Carrow, and I was like, bloody hell, it's so bright. And I think it's because they're quite, I don't know if it's because I don't know if it's because of the angles or something, but they are incredibly bright. So we'll see. I think a recent fans thing, they suggested that they might look into the angles and whether there is any way it could be slightly, retina saving. So we'll see. Anything you don't want to talk about, Ryan?
I don't want to talk about Onel Hernandez and how I love him, but he frustrates me like there's no tomorrow, man. He really, really does. I've never seen someone make up so much ground and then just stop and then go, what now, guys? And just, you don't know what's going to happen next. And that's part of the fun until he smashes across against a defender and it breaks down. Like I don't think he's the solution, put it that way. I know that sounds painfully obvious, but I saw a load of people calling for him to be back in the starting 11. And I don't think you can rely on him for the bulk of this season. You just can't.
But Ryan, have you seen his interview? I think it was in the programme where he was saying like he wants to live in Norwich forever. And
that's true. That's true. And he's at Riverside every day. Yeah,
getting a cortado from Costa's. You can tell him this at Costa Coffee, Ryan.
I will do. I genuinely saw him in B&M at Riverside last week. So I was. He just went up and down the aisle, stopped, turned around, and went back again. It was great.
At least he didn't sort of throw his payment card at the end and miss the till. But Onel, he's a great player. He can have a real impact this year. He really can have a real impact this year. It's probably not going to be from starting 40 games. But
yeah, sure this is the thing. Like with 10, 15, 20 to go, bring him on by all means against a tiring defence. But to start him like Friday, you can't do that for 20, 30 more games. You just can't if you want to get top 6 in this league.
He'll start at times. What else was I going to say? Oh, well done, Bali Mumba. Scored his first league goal for Plymouth. Well, he's having a good time. Eventful time, certainly. I think he's ticking all the boxes. We've had a sending off. We've had a goal now. So keep up the good work, Bali. Norwich City Fan Social Club, they've got their players forum this week. It's at Carrow Road. What I would do is suggest you look at their social media feeds to check when it is, because I, at the moment of writing, don't know. But I think it might be Thursday, Wednesday, but enjoy it. Go and check it out. Tim Krul is there, Onel Hernandez, and Liam Gibbs. We haven't even mentioned yet, but I'm sure we'll get to in a bit. And other things we're not going to talk about, Mark Atanasio. Maybe we should talk about it probably at some point. Properly. He is going to become a director at Norwich City. There is the club have called a shareholders meeting for September the 12th to have a vote on making him a director at the football club, which is interesting. He's obviously in the process of buying Michael Folger's 18% shareholding, which would make him a minority shareholder in the club. Very rich man, owner of the MLB franchise, Milwaukee Brewers. Not someone you'd expect to just sit around as minority shareholder at a football club, but he will be on the board of directors. I can say that with assurance because the club don't want any shareholders to turn up to this meeting because it's going to be really short. They just want them to vote in advance by proxy, and also doesn't really matter what they vote, because the only vote that will get it through is Delia and Michael's. So, and presumably the fact they've set up this meeting means they will vote this through. The other
What if they
slightly
didn't turn up? That'd be funny, wouldn't it?
the other slightly
Delia and Michael just
yeah,
don't
would
turn
be. Yeah, no one's turning up. No one wants to turn up. Mark Atanasio is not going to be at this meeting. He's not flying over for it. It's not the only thing on the meeting agenda, and no one will be able to attend this meeting. The only slightly curious point is that they don't have to hold this meeting for Mark Atanasio to become a director. They could just appoint him and then vote him on at the AGM.
Why don't they do that then?
I don't know. It's a great question. Why don't they do that? So there's
Maybe
obviously
they didn't
stuff
know
going
about
on. Stuff going on. So there we go. That's why we're not going to talk about it, because there will be plenty of opportunities to do that, probably on September the 13th, which sounds...
Or live
ludicrously
outside Carrow Road on
Yep.
September the 12th.
We're going to stream our podcast live.
Well,
We're
yeah.
going to sit down in the car park, uninvited, and just talk for 7 days until we've got to the bottom of it all, by talking to people who walk past us. Anyway, none of this is helping tie this podcast into less than an hour. So have we got any good comments or questions, Steve? You've obviously been checking them.
Well, just one that's just come in from Sam Maguire. I mean, we don't have to talk about this, but let's talk about ex-Norwich City player Louis Thompson with his injury. Such a shame for a young player. I don't actually know how young he is now, but yeah, I think he broke his leg, didn't he, yesterday playing for Portsmouth? So
He didn't. I did not know that.
yeah,
Against
Latest
Joey
in
Martin's Bristol Rovers.
yeah,
Oh,
make of that what you
Yeah.
will.
I
I
will.
will
So gutted for him.
flag up another couple that you have actually flagged up. Again, down in League One, Norfolk Dumpling has said, looks as if we could have the Old Farm derby back.
Well, that is the most pessimistic thing we've seen on this podcast. I mean, because you're not only saying that Ipswich are coming up, but that we're not going up.
Yeah, Ipswich can't get promoted to the Premier League.
I do think
Not
they're going to go. They clearly look like they're capable of going well this year. That's a pretty strong start.
Yeah,
And all that sort of stuff.
they'll find a way to mess up. There's some good teams in League One.
Clip that out.
Simon Duarte has said, I would like to say, as you kind of teed this up, Michael, how impressed I've been with Liam Gibbs' maturity. Looks composed and the steel we need in midfield. I would wholeheartedly agree with that.
The only thing I slightly recoil at, and I've seen it a couple of places, I don't think you can fairly judge whether he's better or not than Billy Gilmore, because there is no championship performances you can look at and go, well, maybe apart from Marcelino Nunez, because he does look like such a class apart from pretty much most championship midfielders. I wouldn't say Liam Gibbs looks like that. He looks like a very, very good young player, but either of them, it's very hard to judge how they would do.
I was going to say, Michael, I think if you put Billy Gilmore into this team and played him in the games that Liam Gibbs has played, he'd have played that role in a very similar way and maybe in a better way. But I think Gibbs has been great and a revelation and another beneficiary of kind of, because he wouldn't have been playing if things had gone how they'd gone with left backs falling off a cliff and midfielders having to play out there and Isaac Hayden getting badly injured or having his knee cleaned out. So yeah, he's kind of been thrown in there and he's done really well. I'm interested to see how he's going to do if he does play against Sunderland. And I think there's a wider, I don't want to call it concern, but an interest, I think, in how we're going to do in that game. I think it's going to be a real marker, I think, of where we're at as a team. And I don't mean quality, I mean mentality, because I think I'm not fully convinced yet that this team has the constitution to go away from home regularly in this division and get the results, play the way that you need to get results away at teams like Sunderland, who had a great start to the season. They're going to have 38,000 people in the stadium. It's going to be on telly. It's going to be an interesting test, I think. If we I'm not saying we're not going to come through it. It wouldn't surprise me if we go there and win, but. And it kind of links back to what you've said a couple of times, Michael, about the togetherness in this squad and that team spirit, that mentality, which maybe we saw a bit more potentially on Friday, but we're not absolutely certain about how bonded this squad is. That stuff becomes really important when you play matches like this that we're going to play against Sunderland next weekend. So yeah, that's and with Gibbs, I think how is he going to fare when we're going to have periods of that game where we're gonna suffer. And this is what managers talk about all the time: is suffering in matches and being able to suffer. And I think that's going to be really interesting spotlight on Liam Gibbs when that happens, because I think so far, I mean, he has shown good defensive flashes as well as that kind of metronomic possession game that he's got. But yeah, I'm really interested to see how he develops this season, because I am excited by him. I think he looks like the kind of midfielder we haven't really got, which is good, and he's so young as well.
It's
he's 3 years younger than Josh Sargent.
Oh, don't! Oh my gosh,
13 years younger than us.
Yeah. I'm not doing that, Sam. Yeah, I think it's his physicality, Liam, that's impressed me so far. Because some of the stuff you were saying there, Ben, some people were saying when he comes up against Millwall, how will he do? And he does.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the one-on-one sort of physical battles. I think it's the sustained pressure from an opposition in a different environment, different atmosphere. I think it's going to be interesting.
And I do think, I have a feeling, although I haven't seen them play properly yet, that Sunderland will be in and about the playoff mix this year. I can see that definitely. Right, let's move on. Tui, shall we, Tui? In we Tui, shall we? This is almost fantasy football.
This is almost fantasy football.
All right, no need to copy me, Motti. Right, after bigging up how big it was last week, this week we have Bournemouth in the Carabao Cup at home on Tuesday night. A deja vu, as it is almost exactly 12 months. Is it 12 months to the day, the game? Probably, I meant to check it, but it probably is. It's close enough to the 6-0 thrashing that obviously set Norwich up so well last season. To score another 6 home goals, whatever it was. So that'll be exciting. And then, as we've been talking there and teeing up quite nicely, Sunderland at home, Saturday morning. It's going to be an early start for those of you who go. Had I been here, I may still not have gone. But I hope if you do go, you have a safe trip. And that is live on Sky as well. So the trip to your living room or public house might be more appealing. I mean, it is Alec Neil and Alex Pritchard reunions at the Stadium of Light, which is fun. Hey, Ryan, good old Pritch. There's an interview with Pritch I did, by the way, just before he joined Sunderland last year while he was still a free agent. That's on The Athletic. Give that a read. That's a plug.
Yeah, and Patrick Roberts too, I think. Is he at Sunderland still?
Yes.
I think he is. Yes. Norwich's best player for the 1920 season, according to his brother. But, yeah. I do you know what? I'm really looking forward to it. Not least for all, as obvious as it sounds, all the points you guys have said, because I agree. I think Sunderland will be one of the surprise packages this year. I think Alec Neil is. I do genuinely believe him to be a really good coach, and I think he's still got a lot of room to grow as a manager. And I think we've seen that from him over his time at Preston as well, what he did with a shoestring budget there. And I think Sunderland are probably one of, if not the biggest club in the division, all things considered. And I think he's going to really win over some people there as the season goes on. I don't know a great deal about them, as you can probably tell from the fact I'm saying a lot about nothing. But
no, it's perfect. This is
this is the thing. Like I do genuinely think that going to the Stadium of Light is going to be one of the grounds where a lot of teams will come unstuck this year, because the atmosphere there, now they're kind of on an upward trajectory, is going to be absolutely rocking all the time. I did notice the other day, though, that they played QPR at home and were 2-0 up with, 10 minutes left, and then Diang, the goalkeeper, came up for a corner and scored a header. And that always makes me chuckle as a goalkeeper myself. So I have no idea really what to expect on Saturday, but I do also echo Ben's points of, I think this is the kind of game where you really really see what we're made of, The
interesting thing about the cup game, I suppose, Steve, is that there's not really much riding on it other than progressing in the cup and getting some minutes into players, isn't there? I mean, I imagine it's probably still too soon for Isaac Hayden, but Sam Byram will play. I think that's already been said. Adam Ida will play as well. I guess it's
fringe players like Timu Pukki.
Fringe players.
Get Timu in. Yeah, I believe he's never going to start for us again, is he, in the league?
No, I didn't think he was going to play for us again. Just sell him. Don't need him. Don't need him. That would be my take. Absolute hot take. Don't need him.
We'll definitely clip that one out if we're going to clip it.
Cancel his contract. Yeah, just cancel it.
Because people don't understand irony, do they? Out of context.
Please don't clip it out. Oh, he's lost it. Anyway, carry on. Yeah. You know, it'd be a fun night, pressure off against a Premier League team that got absolutely smashed by Arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of I watched I just saw the match of the day highlight to that Bournemouth Arsenal game, and I thought, I do not envy you. I'm quite glad to be where we are this season, actually, because it felt very similar to some of our games last season. So, yeah, I mean, if we go through, that'd be nice. I think, yeah, it's nice to get home draws in the cup, isn't it? I mean, I have to say I'm much, much more excited about Sunderland. I think that feels like a proper... I mean, with all due respect to the 5 teams who played in the league so far, none of them have really kind of got the juices flowing, whereas I just think this is one of those that could go, as Ryan said, any one of 3 ways, really. Like, we could win, we could lose.
We will get a result one way.
We will. Yeah, I mean, sorry, that's the kind of ridiculous cliche thing. Any game could do that, but all 3 outcomes are definitely possible. And I think it's going to be a really good gauge of where we're at. Obviously, there's the Alec Neil connection, as we've already said. I was looking into his record because they play with the back 3, which to me seems unusual for an Alec Neil team. But we did do it 4 times when he was manager, and we lost all 4 games. So I don't know, but yeah.
He's always quite a creative tactician, though, Alec Neil.
Alec Neil.
Alex.
Yeah.
Is that what you used to call him in the press conference?
I feel like I should just call him Alex and be done with it, but I've sort of stuck to it for so long now, I couldn't possibly change it. Yeah, it was interesting because Dean Smith said that I think every team Norwich have played against so far this season have played with a back 3. I think that might be right. Or I think Hull changed to a 4 from a 3 because they'd been playing a 3. But it's the Championship fashion to play with a back 3. Unless you're Norwich, who are steadfastly sticking to their 4, and on they go. So there we go.
Can you remember that when we played Rotherham last summer in the Championship away from home? That's quite early on in the season. I think that we kind of scraped a win there without playing particularly well.
Indeed.
And I think that set us off on one of our unbeaten runs for that season. It feels a bit like that. I think we'd gone into that Rotherham game having lost to Derby, and so we hadn't had the 2 wins that we have got going into this one. But it feels like a similar kind of challenge, like Sunderland away. It's going to be tough, and we're going to have to, as I said, learn to suffer, I think, for parts of that game, and not make those silly errors which have put a dampener on our other away trips this season.
Love it. Well, I think we've wrapped up all that, which probably only leaves us with Kenny Other Business, which is in the same position as normal. It hasn't drifted further inside and left a gaping hole at the end of the pod, so that's good. Love him. I love him. It's only said with love and affection. Ryan, did you want to throw out one of your 5-second challenges?
Go on, let's do it. Let's do it while we've got the time. Let's do it. This is good fun. Ben, welcome to the world of the 5-second challenge, my friend.
I don't know what this is, but I'm all for it.
That's fine. Thank you for paying so much attention to the previous pods.
Not only was he not on, he didn't bother listening.
So Ben,
I've got a 6-week-old baby.
Right.
He can have a go too, or she. So you have
we do
5
better
seconds.
than Dan Brigham.
Oh, we'll see. This is Dan's worst nightmare. So Ben, you're gonna go first. You have 5 seconds to answer 3. To give me 3 answers to a question, essentially.
Yeah. Okay.
The theme this week is around the Championship because I had no other means to connect anything. And I would like you, Ben, to name 3 players to have worn the number 1 jersey for Norwich in the Championship. Now, before we go, I should preface, I mean the Championship, since it's rebranding from the year 2004 onwards. Okay? Are we good?
Yeah.
Super. Okay, Ben, ready? 3,
28-second challenge.
3, 2, 1, go.
John Ruddy, Tim Krul, Robert Green.
Oh, you would have been right. Yeah, no, you were right, but you were just over the time.
Okay.
That's right. I had a long lead-in period as well there. So.
That's fine. See, I knew you'd never played the game before. I was helping you out, man.
Great work.
Okay,
Great
super
work.
duper. Steve, you, my friend, have to name 3 players to have worn the number 3 jersey for Norwich in the Championship. And go.
Oh, Drury, Whittaker, and whoever's got it at the moment. Can't remember. Cannot remember. Who's 3? Oh, Byram.
Yeah,
although
absolutely.
he's never played for us in the Championship, I don't think. So I don't know if that would have been right.
And also, Stephen Whittaker was number 2.
Okay.
in the
So
championship.
it wouldn't have even mattered
Didn't
if
even
he
get that
was
one.
right. Great work. Great work.
In
Ryan.
that season, had you have said Carlos Cuellar, we'd have been on the money, but no, not
Oh,
quite.
how could I forget?
Amazing
him? How
delivery
could
from
I?
Ryan there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Absolute nailed
What?
it.
Were there any other threes? Sorry.
There were Martin Olsen, James' husband as well.
Jimmy husband.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael, you have the one which has the most possible answers. Are you ready? I need you to name. You're welcome. I need you to name 3 players to have worn the number 6 jersey for Norwich in the Championship. And go.
Ben Gibson. Oh, I've gone completely blank. No.
Oh, it's done. It's done.
It's tough.
I don't even think I
That
can
is
think of
tough.
now.
Zimbo. Did he wear 6?
Chris,
Zimbo, Zimbo.
You don't think he's a
I
legend?
could completely back. Michael Turner.
Yeah, that's one. You also could have had Darren Huckabee, Dejan Stefanovic, or Zach Whitbread.
Hucks. Bloody hell. Sorry, I wasn't listening to the rest.
Okay, Ben, your final question is, I need you to...
Oh, we do another one. Okay, right.
Of course you are. Yeah, one more. All right, Ben. Didn't think you weren't that much of a fan. Yikes. Okay, Ben.
Yeah.
You need you to name 3 players to have finished top scorer in a Norwich City Championship season. And go.
Temu Pukki.
Oh, it's done.
Cameron
It's done
Drame.
already. Oh, it's done already, I'm afraid. You could have also had Grant Holt, Leroy Lita, Jamie Curriton, Robert Earnshaw, and Dean Ashton.
Leroy Lita. Doesn't count if you get relegated, surely. Carry on.
That's great.
Okay, Michael,
right,
you now, we're going back to you now. You have to name 3 English players to have scored a hat-trick for Norwich in the Championship. And go.
Darren Huckabee, Grant Holt, Dean
Oh,
Ashton.
It's done already. You were right with Dean Ashton. Darren Huckabee didn't. Grant Holt did. You could have also had Leroy Lita, Jamie Curriton,
doesn't count.
Gary Hooper, and James Madison.
Wow, 2 shout-outs for Leroy Lita in the same
No, exactly.
Unbelievable.
That's my favourite quiz.
Steve, your question is, how many Norwich strikers with the surname Lita can you name?
I need you to name anagrams of Leroy Lita and go. Okay, Steve, your question.
Last one. There
are only 4 possible answers to this.
Even if you want more, Ryan, there's not going to be more.
I'm literally going to cut you off.
Steve, quickly. Okay, name 3 foreign players to have scored a hat-trick for Norwich in the Championship. Go.
Temu Pukki, Simeon Jackson, and I am out.
Oh, so close. You could have also had either Nelson Oliveira or Wes Houlihan.
Oh,
Wes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good shout with Simeon Jackson there, Steve. That was
not good enough. Just not good enough.
Well, I think football quizzes were the winner there, and probably Ryan. In fact, Ben, I think you did best out of us, so well done.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm not sure anyone got anyone right then.
Yeah, I don't think football quizzes were the winner there. None of us succeeded in any of them.
Or the only brilliant Ryan, as always. Thank you so much. Especially for being, frazzled.
Oh no, the real winner was Leroy Lita, guys.
Well, that's true, actually. Yeah, he'll never get mentioned on this podcast again. Willie. One other point of business, Steve, was a squad numbers question, wasn't it? Now, we got asked 2 weeks ago. Did we get asked? You remember it?
Yeah.
I think Steve dreamed this question up.
Yeah. Michael, can you confirm that this definitely happened? Somebody asked us, who is the last Norwich City player to wear a different number shirts for 3 seasons in a row? So 3 different shirts, 3 different seasons. I don't know if Ben wants to come in at any point. I know he's really keen to discuss this one. But
did we have the answer before we went on air? No?
Well, I think Godfrey did, but he never actually played one of those seasons because he's out on loan.
Oh, right.
So I'm claiming, perhaps incorrectly, I haven't double checked this, that Graham Dorrans wore 3 different shirts, which I can't actually remember the numbers. I think he was 41 in his first season, and then something like 18, and then 4.
Yeah, that's spot on.
The 3 seasons he was there. So there was the answer to the question that literally no one was asking. Possibly, one person may have done originally, or I may have just had a fever dream, and it was the most boring fever dream imaginable.
I'm sure it was an organic question from the viewers, and I remember Zach Nelson messaged me on Twitter to say Ben Godfrey wore 3 numbers.
There you go, Zach.
I think that's probably right. And I'm sure someone else messaged me as well, and I can't find it. So I think we've really nailed that. And brought
Kind of
that
a man that's
to an
thinking,
absolute-
let's just wrap this whole thing up now.
absolute end conclusion there. Which just leaves me to go through final messages. Luke Travis, Daniel Farke second in the Bundesliga. Yes, he is. After 2
That's what
games.
they played on Friday night as well, didn't they?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Borussia
Smith out.
Gladbach. I think it was 2 penalties. Oh no, they won 1-0, but they had 2 penalties, and also they played against 9 men, I think, or 8, 10 men. I don't know. Lots happened. Very exciting, obviously. Good for Daniel. What else was I going to say? Oh, Dan Mayhew. Following my earlier point, which I might have missed, will we see me at Norwich women's games? Hope the Euro success brings more crowd to the Norwich women's team. Yes, indeed. So it's me correcting you, Dan. Dan shouldn't do that. But yes, I will be at a game at some point, definitely, and I will be covering them as best as I can, bearing in mind it's just me. But if I can get to a game, I will be there, and I look forward to following their progress and hoping. They've made a few signings, so I'm hoping they'll have a good season this season. That would be great, especially off the back of the Euros. Go on, Lauren. And finally, Stephen Stibbons. Sorry, Michael, I can't take you seriously when you look like Kevin and Perry. I think it's a reference to my hat, which is because I'm going on holiday. So I've got to help my wife, who is presumably downstairs packing so we can leave. So in that case, I'm going to bring this podcast to a dramatic end, if that's okay. But thank you, as always, for everyone. And I'm now going to start my outro link because I've mucked that up. So, right, that's it for another On the Ball, the Norwich City podcast that always thought it was Alex. Oh, I've even mucked that up. It's just like the wibble. It's the wibble noise from the scrimmage, isn't it?
What's happening?
I mean, normally people would just edit it, but because we stream it live, it becomes very difficult to do that.
You've taken it over an hour as well. You're doing really well.
Don't. My wife is going to come in here in a minute and say, "What the hell are you still doing?" Right. That is it for another On the Ball, the Norwich City podcast that always thought it was Alex rather than Alec. See, you get the joke. If you're yet to do so, make sure you subscribe via podcast player of choice. You know this. Pod's free and available. Go get it. You know all that sort of stuff. We do stream it live, but you know that because you're watching it unless you're listening to it, and then you can find it on the streams. Ratings and reviews always prompted. Are they always prompted? You can, leave a review and a rating if you wish. It's all good. I don't mind. If you want to get in touch with me, do so at Michael J. Bailey. It's the handle on Twitter. Thanks to our guests this evening. Ben, thank you so much for having you on. Can we do it again on video?
Yeah, why not? Thanks for having me on, Michael.
Great news. Brilliant to have you. Glad everyone's well, and we'll see you real soon. Ryan, thank you as always. I feel like I should tell you to go and rest.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to go to bed now. I'm knackered.
Good man. That's the way. Sleep for a week. Steve, a pleasure as always. Will you host next week?
I mean, yeah, I've already said I will. So.
You have already said you will, yeah. That wasn't as big a question as you felt.
Yes, I will. I feel like you definitely need that holiday.
Yes.
Michael, this last
Quick.
5 minutes has been slowly descending into madness, I think. So.
Get me out of here.
Have a nice time.
I will do, thank you. I mean, I might be on the pod as well. Don't know yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Steve's going to host it. So that'll be great. So we will be back next Monday, not tomorrow, obviously next Monday, for another edition of On the Ball and a fresh bout of Canary Capers. Until then, never mind the danger. And we are clear. Thank you, everyone, for all your time, attention on this Sunday evening. I hope you enjoyed it. I think that covers everything off. I better go. Great to see you all, and enjoy the week's football. Tell me how it goes, and I will see you, and Steve will see you, and we'll all see you next Monday. Have a lovely time. Bye.